going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys is about Neckzilla. So I told you guys yesterday that I talked to somebody that saw Neckzilla and Nathan Diasha both at Oxygen Gym, and he said that Neckzilla didn't look good. He looked like he was 10 weeks out, and he thought that Nathan looked really impressive and really sharp. So one of my subscribers actually showed me this podcast. It was on a channel called Miguel Navarro, and this was from a couple months ago. And this is kind of interesting, offering kind of a different insight into Neckzilla's prep for Dubai. Now, the whole thing is in Portuguese, so many of you probably didn't see it. And what Rubiel says in this podcast kind of corroborates what I heard from somebody about him looking like he doesn't look good, like he's 10 weeks out. He basically says in this video that he was working with a coach that he had a very good working relationship with, Fran Espen. So up until a certain point, he was working with Fran, but he claims that his sponsors, there was some kind of issue with his sponsors where they forced him to not work with this coach and then work with the team that they had at Oxygen, including Chris Cormier, who you see him posing with in a lot of his updates now. And he said they made this decision, his sponsors did, to switch up his coach without telling him and without asking him about it, and just suddenly told him this is the plan. And he said that this unexpected change had a major impact on his physique, causing him a lot of stress, and he feels very uncertain. And again, this podcast is from about 2 months ago, so 8 weeks out from the show. And he also says in this podcast that he's worried about how he's going to look at the Dubai show because this was like a disruption to his prep. He had new coaches that he was unfamiliar with. He had a new regimen that he was unfamiliar with, new training routine, new diet that he wasn't used to. And he says he's unsure, how his body's going to react to this. And it's also kind of inferred in this podcast that the decision was made to do the Dubai Pro by his sponsors and not by him, and that also they wanted him to prepare at Oxygen Gym in Dubai for the Dubai show. That was like their idea, not his, and he doesn't seem very happy with the whole situation in this podcast. So maybe that offers an explanation for why he hasn't been posting a whole lot of physique updates, why people that have seen him in person at the gym say he looks watery, say he doesn't look conditioned, say he looks 10 weeks out. And maybe this could also offer some kind of explanation as to the 2 Arnold Classics that he skipped, the New York Pro that he skipped. Was it due to some kind of conflict with his sponsors? But at least at 2 months out, he's kind of putting the blame on them, and he's kind of already saying he doesn't feel like it's going to be his best look even 2 months ago at 8 weeks out because he's just, I guess, kind of totally out of his element. So I kind of wonder now, after hearing this podcast and learning a little bit more about Rubiel's prep for this show, and again, talking to the guy that I talked to the other day that saw him in person, I'm kind of wondering how much of a factor he's actually going to be here, and if this show really is going to be kind of what I said in the last video. It's just going to be one big rematch between Nathan and Bonac and Beiruz, and those will just be the top 3, and maybe Rubiel isn't so much in that mix, and it's going to be one of those guys that wins the show. But at least after listening to this podcast, I think there's really no chance that he's going to pull out of this show because it sounds like his sponsors really want him to do it. Kind of sounds like they forced him to do it and forced him to prep in Dubai with coaches that they had a relationship with in Dubai. So at least it seems like he's not going to be skipping or pulling out of this one because this seems like this is mandated for him to do. But how well is he actually going to do here? He doesn't sound very confident at all in this podcast. And look, I, like everybody else, am like insanely impressed with Rubiel. He is one of the freakiest bodybuilders we've seen in a very long time, possibly since the debut of Big Ramy. He is a freak. He's a massive dude, crazy body parts. He just looks insane. But I feel like he's going to end up being one of these guys that maybe it takes a while for him to really come into his own, if he ever does, and really figure out how to peak, figure out his body, find the right chemistry with a coach, maybe get out of that sponsorship situation, find a show that he actually wants to do and prep for it the best way for him. But I've just kind of had a weird feeling about him because even though, yeah, he's posted these training videos and just a few physique updates here and there where he does look impressive, he hasn't really mentioned anything about the Dubai Pro in any of his posts. He just kind of posts random training videos and a couple of posing videos. He hasn't really talked about, 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out. He hasn't really said, I'm going to win this thing. He hasn't really seemed too excited about the show at all. So I've had kind of this weird feeling just about him in general when talking about him competing in this show because he hasn't really seemed too interested in it, and then he's got that track record of pulling out of all the other shows. And I really think that this podcast here kind of explains that. It doesn't sound like in this podcast he's too excited about even doing the Dubai show. So right now, I still feel like he's a bit of a wild card. Maybe he comes in and looks completely off. Maybe he didn't have a good prep. Maybe this disruption of having to switch coaches and having to completely switch his game plan, maybe that totally throws off his physique. Maybe he's really off. Maybe he still could possibly come in and win this thing and be completely on. But to me, that's starting to seem less and less likely based on some of the things that we've heard. But if you look at Rubio, from the last time that we saw him on stage, the 2023 Prague Pro, which the promoters of that show, I believe, are one of his sponsors. I don't know necessarily if that's the sponsor he's talking about in the podcast, but EVLS is one of his sponsors. You can really see his potential next to two of the best bodybuilders in the world, Michael Krizo and Samson Dauda, which he was third only behind them. His conditioning was like almost there. Size was insane. I think his back could use a little bit of work, but obviously so many crazy body parts. I mean, his traps are crazy, his quads are crazy, crazy round and full through the arms and shoulders, just overall a freak. I definitely can see extreme potential in this guy because he's very young. He's in his mid-20s. And I even heard that this week, the week of the show, he's like 304 pounds. So we'll wait and see what happens. We'll see this weekend. Honestly, I hope he turns out looking insane, beats everybody, and then that's one of the biggest bodybuilding stories of the year. If he won this show, and he beats Bonac, Nathan, and Beirut, all three who just won shows and qualified for the Olympia, he 100% puts himself on the map as a first call-out at the Olympia contender. But if he doesn't, and those three guys beat him at this show, I feel like we really got to cool it on he's the next Mr. Olympia, he's going to be unbeatable, he's going to be unstoppable. He's got to win a show and get to the Olympia first. But I would say, if he does win this one, and he beats the guys that are in this lineup, he is 100% on the map and in that conversation as a first call-out guy. Bonac, Beirut, Nathan, all three of them are Olympia qualified. All three of them have won shows. If Beirut and Nathan were both able to get to the Olympia this year, which seems unlikely and we don't know if they will, I think there's really no doubt in my mind they would be top 10 at the Olympia. So if he beats three of them at this show, on paper that would put him in that 6 or 7 range. Either way, no matter how he looks, I think we've got a very exciting show in store for us this weekend. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.